Abby, Lost at Sea, Chapter 3. Abby swept all 3 rooms of their cabin and added potatoes to the rabbit stewing in the iron pot which hung over the fire. Then she and Sarah went for a walk to while away the time until Mama returned. When they got back, Sarah climbed her tree beside the cottage while Abby went inside. She stopped short when she saw both of her parents seated at the kitchen table. Thomas Kendall, her pa, was home earlier than usual. His big hand was wrapped around a mug of coffee as it rested on the red checkered tablecloth. Abby noticed a streak of dirt on Pa's cheek and the dark blonde hair, as unruly as her own, that curled over his shirt collar. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Abby heard the ticking of the wind-up regulator clock on the wall and the soft bubbling of the potatoes in the pot. Her mother looked up from her spot at the table. "Abby, sit down," she said. "We have something to tell you." Her stomach tightened at the serious tone in her mother's voice. Did someone die? Pa brushed the breadcrumbs off the tablecloth with his massive hands. "Abigail, you know we received a letter from your Uncle Samuel today. In fact, I hear a pretty colorful character delivered it. Well, he brought important news. My brother is ailing bad. It's a fever that comes and goes and leaves him weak. I guess he's been suffering for months now. He's asked us to come help him with the ranch." Abby's heart quickened with hope. It would be wonderful to see the Sandwich Islands, the mysterious people, the fragrant flowers Uncle Samuel had written about. Abby caught her mother's loving gaze. "Honey, your father and I have to help out family. We've decided to leave immediately. Uncle Samuel needs us, and you know there isn't much here to tie us down." Abby knew that her mother meant they didn't own land in Pueblo de San Jose. But when she suddenly thought of Luke, her heart raced. "Ma, what about Pa's job on Mr. Morgan's ranch and all of our friends?" She and Luke had dreamed of traveling, but not this week. "And what about Luke? Can we bring him with us? I mean, he'd be lost without our family. And he's my best friend." "Princess," her father said, using the nickname he usually reserved for tender moments, "I'm planning on talking with Luke's aunt, but don't set a store on her answer." "Oh, Pa, we've got to bring him with us," Abby cried. Instinctively, her hand went to her throat, and the cross hanging there formed of thin gold filigree. The cross hung on a delicate chain. It had been a birthday gift from Luke a year ago. Her father got it from the table and came over to her. His dusty boots were big. Everything about him was big. As Abby looked up from her into his face, she saw a reflection of her own twilight blue eyes. Then she saw the tense line of Pa's mouth relax. "Princess, you know I want Luke along as much as you do, but we'll have to abide by his aunt's decision." Abby's eyes blazed. "Pa, she won't do what's best for him. She's never been kind, not even when he first got here. That woman's dark, Pa. Her heart's filled with poison." "Abigail, it's best not to judge what you don't know. Your pa will do all he can," her mother said firmly. Ma's mink brown eyes softened as she brushed a stray hair from Abby's face. Abby's tortured look wove back and forth between her parents. They were united in decision, but the thought of leaving her home and best friend, even if only for a few months, made her mad. "How long will we be gone?" she demanded. When her parents looked at one another gravely, she knew what their silence meant. "You can't mean we're going to live there forever." She made a strangled noise and jumped up from the chair. "I won't!" Abby ran out of the house, letting the door slam behind her, and raced down the steps and across the yard, and when she turned her ankle on a rock, She winced in pain, but refused to slow down. Sarah stopped swinging from the tree limb and dropped to the ground as she watched Abby limp by, tears tracking down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" she asked Abby's retreating back. Too mad to stop, Abby shouted her outrage over her shoulder. "Ma and Pa want to move to Uncle Samuel's, all the way to the Sandwich Islands." "You mean where the natives dance in the moonlight?" Sarah sounded awestruck. As Abby glanced back over her shoulder, she could see Sarah's little blonde eyebrows arched in amazement. "That's right," Abby said, grateful that her sister grasped the horror of the situation. "Ma!" Sarah yelled. "Ma!" Ma opened the front door and stepped onto the narrow porch. Concern etched across her face. Abby limped down the dirt road, but she could still hear Sarah's voice. "Ma, is it true? Are we going to Uncle Samuel's to have a real adventure?" Stunned, Abby's mouth dropped open. Traitor. Can't you see it means leaving all of our friends behind, she thought. Just then, Abby heard her father's boot on the porch boards. "That's right, little britches," he answered gaily. "We're going to take our schooner and sail across the wide Pacific Ocean. It's a chance to own some land and start a new life." Abby sped up her pace, even though her ankle now throbbed. "I don't want a new life. Not without Luke. And you shouldn't either." She was almost out of earshot, yet she could feel her mother's eyes boring onto her back, all the way across the orchard of mustard seed and apricot trees. But she would not turn around and acknowledge those eyes. Mother could have stopped this. Why didn't she? Doesn't she know it will break Luke's heart if we leave him behind? A crow landed in a nearby alder tree. Caw, caw, caw. The mournful cry mirrored her own heart. The wind carried the earthy scent of creek water across her path. Autumn leaves swirled free of their golden brown piles and scuttled crab-like across the road. Even if it wasn't almost time for the winter sun to set, the approaching clouds would darken the landscape soon. "Oh, why did I ever bring that letter home?" she wondered. The day had dawned just like any other, but it had brought the worst news of her life. Her tea-colored hair swirled across her face, blocking her view. That's just how things are, too. Like I can't see the future anymore. She had always thought her family would stay in Pueblo de San Jose until she and Luke were grown enough to go off on their own. An hour ago, she had longed for adventure, but never without Luke. How could she tell him they were leaving? She remembered his wink at her this afternoon, and tears flooded her eyes. She knew how much he counted them as his own family. More than anyone else, she knew what it had done to him to be abandoned once before. Off in the distance, the ominous rumble of thunder boomed across the Santa Clara Valley, but Abby didn't need to hear it to know that she was walking straight into a storm. I'll see you tomorrow with more of Abby Lost at Sea.